matrix breaking glitches.
Oh yeah. Anytime the two energies hit each other at that level, it just ripples.
That's what I feel, you know. That's what's been happening. Let me just check the sound.
Things have gotten pretty crazy. Awesome though, but crazy.
Wildly divine.
Exactly.
Wildly divine. It's just such a sharp contrast because you're going through or observing or experiencing, I don't know, these old paradigm things. And then over here on the other end of the spectrum, you're like shooting out at the speed of beyond the speed of light.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, that's a, all right.
It's that lens. That's that whole process we're in right now, is like cleaning up that lens. That is the old paradigm. That is the trauma. That is all those things. So
yeah, that's what's been happening. Kind of like those overlays you talked about.
Exactly. Well, this is a transit, right? Like we're all in transit space, which means that the world can literally be exactly what it needs to be without influencing or hurting the divine plan. So we're able to have harsher examples push upon us that aren't actually influencing where we're headed. It's a really interesting dynamic that we're in.
Yeah, let's repeat that. So it's not affecting where we're heading, but it's still coming at us.
Exactly.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Well, that's what it feels like,
right? Like we're either on a plane or we're on a boat or we're on the rescue mission, right? So we're on one of those three. But all the shit that's inside of us, sorry, I didn't mean to curse. For those that are sensitive to that, deal with it. But anyway, the process of us letting go of all of these things is like us being shaken like this. And all this stuff is just coming out of us. And then we're looking at it. We're like, oh, I didn't think I knew that. I didn't believe that. I can't believe this is me. And then we judge it. And when we judge that, that's when it comes and reattaches to us.
Yeah.
But if we just go, oh, wow, I can acknowledge that's who I used to be, and then just let it go, all of a sudden clarity comes in. And it's fast. It's like that. Like the moment you let something go, immediately you're given something greater. And you're just like, oh, wow, this is amazing. So there's two ends to it, and they're very extreme. The end of like extreme, like, oh, I can't let this go. I can't let this go. And then eventually you have to let it go. Otherwise your body will break. And then you do let it go. And then immediately after you're given this divine gift, and you're just like, oh, it feels like the most kind, sweet, loving. And how in the world did I live without this? Right. And that's where we're at right now. And that's the beauty of it. On April 15th, we'll cross over. So we're in transit space, but we're still in transit space in the old paradigm. And we're moving into the new paradigm. But we're still going to be in transit space, meaning we're not landing. So we're no longer on this land and we're no longer on this land. We're in the middle, learning to be okay with what's here. So the currents that we're being faced with are moving towards that dynamic. But they're getting stronger as we progress closer to the landing on the new world, which that's May 18th for the first group. It's August 23rd for the second group. And it's January 9th for the rest of humanity.
Okay, so let's go back to, you said something about April 15th. That's this month.
Yes. April 15th is this month.
What did you say April 15th was?
That's the midpoint. On April 15th, we actually cross over into the new paradigm's energies. So right now, we are just cleaning up the old paradigm. But we're actually going to start to get glimpses of the world that is to become. And we're going to start to see where we aren't worthy of it. And that's the 15th of April, which is perfect because, you know, soon after that, we go into the mental purge. And that mental purge is going to bring up all of that stuff for us to face, which is great because all the things we believe about ourselves that aren't true, that we don't know about, we get to work on that.
Yeah. They will appear. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, no, there's no one here for this. Anyone that chose to ascend is going through this. It's great because for the first time ever, no matter how sensitive you are or how not sensitive you are, you're dealing with your shit.
Yeah. It's time to raise up the flag of compassion, self-compassion.
Exactly.
But the other part of that cycle is, too, when you get that feeling like, oh, my God, I can't believe I lived without this feeling. Now I have it. Then about an hour later, another one shows itself to you.
Yep. An hour, they're being nice to you. Like seconds for me. It's like, oh, this is like, oh, wait, nope, got to deal with this now. And then what's really fun is this feeling that you can't believe you lived without, right? then it gets taken too, right? Because it's like, oh no, that's outdated now because you've had it for 5
Don't
minutes.
attach to that.
And you're like, what? I just got this. And then it's gone. And you're like, okay, well, I'll work on this again. And then like something new comes and it's more amazing. And that's the cool part. I can say that so far, every time something's been removed from my life, something greater has shown up.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. But yeah, each time it's this like, oh, nothing is actually, I can't own anything. It's not for me to own. It's for me to acknowledge and then to play with until it's removed.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the body, man? My body's been taking a beating the last 4 days.
So our bodies, we're actually preparing for a body speed up phase. So we're in a build phase. The best way I can describe a body speed up phase is, are you familiar with ridges, like the imprinted energies that are around us that we call walls and barriers and things like that?
No.
Okay, so you have force that's basically an influence that's been empowered. And that force is here, right? And it's pushing into us. So what we do, if we don't want to dissolve the force back into an influence, is we take and we push back at it. And so the force and the counter force push together and they create these lines around us called ridges. We call them masks, we call them barriers, we call them walls, boundaries, we call them all these things. But basically, it's us choosing not to face something.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it so much so that eventually a part of us autopilots that reactivity towards that particular push.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have what is called a ridge. Well, the body speed up phase shakes our body so fast that the energetic currents push up against those ridges and start dissolving them. But what happens is the original wound inside of that comes out and it starts to blossom and we're forced to face it. Our bodies have ridges inside of them. So when we speed up, we're actually breaking up all this cellular memory and all these things that are heavy inside of us that don't belong. Our bodies are being turned into a 5th dimensional form. And in order to do that, we have to have nothing left. That's like why inflammation comes up. Inflammation is an energy block being pushed against. Well, right now, the stream of our body is ridiculous.
I've had a lot of inflammation.
Exactly. Yeah.
For probably 3 days. Yeah.
It's been pretty intense. I've even had inflammation and I do a lot of work to work through it. But the more work you do, the more light that runs, the more it pushes against things. The good news is all these things that it's pushing against, this pain, these things that we're feeling, those things are inside of us and they've been hurting us all along.
Mm-hmm.
And this is them coming up and saying, hey, I don't want to hurt you anymore. Just let me go. So it's not a bad thing, the inflammation and the things like that. It just means, okay, so if I have inflammation in my arm, it means, hey, put my hand here, feel it. What exactly is causing this inflammation? Maybe do a little bit of self-love and massage. Connect to it, say, hey, body, I know that you're along for the ride with me. We're both going through this. We don't need to be in pain if we don't want to be. So let's talk about this and go deeper in before the next current hits. Because you can actually clear faster than these currents, but it requires that willingness. The reason that we have inflammation is there's something we're unwilling to deal with and the energy's pushing against it. But if we have a willingness that's higher than what's being asked of us, all of a sudden things fall away immediately. The light comes in, it clears out like that, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this one's hard because this is the feelings, right? Like we went through the emotional purge and we stabilized it by spirituality, which was allowing ourselves to go inward and be quiet and be still, or to move in meditation, right? This one's the opposite. This one is the spiritual purge is being pushed into. So we're being asked to feel. And for many men, and women too, but women are usually better at feeling than men. For many men, this is very awkward for us because we're being asked to like come into this 5th dimensional sexuality, which is like, hey, I'm allowed to be vulnerable. I not only am allowed to be vulnerable, but it's required of me now to be vulnerable. If I don't allow myself to feel what I'm feeling and to express it in either letters I'm never going to send or in gratitude or celebration, things like that, it's going to bottle up. And we can't afford to bottle it up anymore. Our bodies literally cannot hold anymore. And it's forcing that to come up for us. For women, it's about exploring their sexuality and actually giving themselves permission to embody the innocence of sexuality again. And that's been really hard for them because what happens is they start to connect to their body sexually. And that doesn't necessarily mean like through stimulation. It could just be like holding your body and seeing your own sexiness, acknowledging your own sexiness, and like unlocking that. And for them, that's the hardest thing they can do. If you ask a woman if they're sexy and what defines them being sexy, most of them will be challenged to answer that. If you ask a man what he's feeling, most of them will have a little hesitancy to say that. And I'm referring to the collective. I'm not referring to each individual, but that's what we're being asked to do. And that's what the spiritual purge is us being asked to go into that. Women being asked to go into innocence and sexuality and being sexual again, being a sexy being. I was watching a show the other day and they said, you know, most people misunderstand sexiness as we do this for others, but sexiness is actually what we do for ourselves. And that was just like, oh, that was the missing piece. Everything makes so much sense now. I've always considered myself very sexy, but it's because everything is about me learning who I am, right? So that made sense to me. It all clicked into place. I never understood like doing things for others so that you could be something. And that was very helpful for me. But the vulnerability aspect, that's challenging. Even for me, I've done a lot of work around vulnerability, but allowing myself to feel everything that's coming up, because it's coming up fast. It's not like, here's a little thing to deal with right now, Jason. No, it's like, here's everything you've ever held. Good luck. And that's great, because
there's big boulders and there's little rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all in the innocence.
It is.
The innocence is in that, the way you so eloquently described the feminine and the masculine, what they're faced with and where they're headed. It's all innocence.
It is.
It's the innocence of the sexual sacred vibration for the women, and for the men, it's the innocence of having those feelings beyond embarrassment or shame or blame or anything external. It's a really cool description the way you described it, but it's innocence.
Well, that's fifth dimensional sexuality. Fifth dimensional sexuality is reclaiming the innocence for yourself. Whereas where like for so long, sexuality required a partner. In our minds, it was like, well, we can't do this if we don't have this. We can't do this if we don't have that. No, sexuality has always been within us. And that's where we're headed right now on the planet. I can't talk a lot about fifth dimensional sexuality yet because it's not time. But what I can say is the first step of it is us discovering that we are both masculine and feminine within ourselves and working through each aspect. So if you're a man, you have to first work through vulnerability to bring in that divine sexiness, innocence into it. And then when you bring those two together, then you actually come into wholeness. And that wholeness is a platform for the exploration of the fifth dimensional sexuality.
Well, there seems to be a pretty strong consensus that the divine masculine energies landed and finally planted its feet and is stepping in. So I guess that's putting that ridge, those ridges, the pressure of all that type of thing, you know, on everybody, male and female.
Well, we're all male and female energetically. Yeah. So like it doesn't matter whether like the masculine reflection is now coming in, which is the spirituality, right? But prior to that, we had the feminine reflection, which was pushing in on us to move into the masculine. Now we're being pushed to move into the feminine. And so the masculine is like flowing and the feminine is growing. Before, the feminine was flowing and the masculine was growing. That was the emotional purge. The emotional purge was all this feminine energy running through us, and the only way to balance it out was to move into our masculinity. And now we're being asked to do the opposite. And then we get to move into, on the 20th, the mental purge, which is the wholeness. Doesn't matter whether you're masculine or feminine in this is like completely pushing on everything all at once. And that's going to be beautiful, and that's going to be perfect because it gives us an opportunity to experience wholeness as a reflection.
Yeah, and I guess in a nutshell too, every one of us is experiencing that masculine energy inside of us that's expressing itself, and the vulnerability, and the feminine side of us, which is the innocence, sacred sexuality.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is what's happening in all of us, really.
Exactly. Right now. And that's what we're in. I mean, that's April for you. We have the Bodies Feet at Phase starting on the 14th. Which is going to be our bodies vibrating faster than they've ever vibrated, honestly. And more stuff's going to come up. So have what you need really prepare yourself, because you're going to be resource heavy. You're going to be burning through resources faster than you even knew you could. Water, you'll drink it and you'll still be dehydrated because it won't matter. You could drink 10 gallons of water and you would still be dehydrated. We're learning to become reliant on all of these things outside of us, and it's not helping us. And the body speed up phase is saying, hey, you can't do this anymore. This water, no matter how good it is, isn't going to be as good as your own source light. What I'm saying is, obviously don't go and not drink water and do other resources, but also remember that the only way to really survive body speed up phases and to thrive in them and to grow in them is to create your own resources within yourself. You know, the external resources are helpful, but remember, they're teachers. They're designed to teach you to create within. We're all responsible creators on this planet. Whether we believe ourselves to be or not, it doesn't matter. The truth is, we got here. And the fact that we got here proves that we're awesome. Like, as a planet, we are now at the ascension time. Like, how amazing is that? The planet itself is already ascended. Humanity is now given a choice to. And all we're asked to do is change a little bit of our belief structures so that we can be able to experience the greatness that is.
Yeah. Yeah. From an energetic standpoint, what you're describing, it sounds like energetic fasting, like where you take on nothing external and your body's living off of itself in that infinite cycle.
Exactly, which is why we went over that in the last one that we did together, was we were talking about how fasting is so important right now, but what fasting isn't what people are calling it. We talked about the 5-minute timer and things like that, so that you could actually create that energetic thing, because 5 minutes is an eternity to your body. It can learn a ton in 5 minutes. We don't need to spend hundreds of hours doing something to master it anymore. We just need to unlock the ability to master it and the worthiness to master it. See, we give ourselves permission to master something, and then we work through all the things that come up that say we're not worthy of it, and all of a sudden we go do it once, and it's like, oh wow, I understand the entirety of that, because our dimensionality has increased so much, and it continues to increase by the day, that we're able to do things so much faster than we've ever been able to do them.
Yeah,
but like we have to have that willingness.
Like you said, it's it's the beliefs. It's getting past those beliefs. That's a big part of it.
Absolutely. That, I would say, would be 90% of it.
Yeah.
Humanity is unlimited. We have nothing that restricts us except ourselves.
That's right.
And if we get out of our own way, what we can do is literally unimaginable right now.
It's like having a genie in a lamp.
Yep. It's a really good example.
It's seriously. But the belief part of it, like the belief that you have to fast for 40 days and 40 nights versus what we can accomplish in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the quantum, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not linear. It's more to our natural nature, more universal purity. I don't know, but you're right. We can do anything we want to do.
Absolutely.
We can clear anything in an instant. And the only thing holding us back from having cleared it is us thinking, the monkey mind thinking, no, you didn't do it, or you're not good enough to do it, or you're not that powerful, and all that stuff. It's that, that's all over.
That's why I'm really looking forward to the mental purge, because that stuff that you just mentioned that's in your mind, that's the mental purge. It's going to show a light on all of those belief structures in your mind that say, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, I'm not worthy of this. And you're going to be like, oh, that's actually not true. And then just let it go, right? It's going to be that easy for people that are willing. For people who aren't willing, it's going to be extremely difficult, because in order to balance the mind to let something go, all 4 planes have to be balanced out. So you have to have your physical plane balanced out by your spiritual plane, right? Like, you have to have those two, or your virtual plane, sorry. Your physical balanced by your virtual. Then you have to have your emotional balanced by your spiritual. And when those 4 planes are working together, you're able to unlock your mind. And then you're able to start cleaning up the beliefs in your mind that you took on your whole lives. And that's the change.
How long is this mental purge supposed to last? And I understand everything's
April
not linear.
20th to May 18th.
So about a month.
Yeah, a little under a month, I think. But I'm not sure how many days are in April. So.
Well, I can't imagine.
It's going to be awesome.
To me, as the moments go by, I feel like I got to stay on my toes. And I don't mean that like in a defense mode, just in a presence mode.
Yeah.
It takes everything I have to be in presence of myself, and that's almost a full-time thing, you know.
It is a full-time thing. That's the thing. Actually, I really want to address this. There's this belief that part-time spirituality works in the world. Like, people believe, they're like, oh, you know, it's just like a religion, so I can go to church on Sundays and worship, and then the rest of the time I don't really need to do anything because I got it out of the way on Sunday. Part-time spirituality doesn't work. Spirituality means the overall goodness of a person, right? So like, you can't just be good part of the time and actually hope for greatness. It doesn't work. You're always spiritual or you're not. It's that simple. You're one or the other. Spiritual people can't just be like part-timers, especially in the world that we're moving towards. We're moving to a world where we can't take reality and put it in boxes anymore. Can't be like, well, I'm going to work, so I'm not allowed to be spiritual today.
It's not distorted.
Exactly.
You know, we distort the reality from the center of the universe, which is ourself. I mean, and we're at a point now where it doesn't matter who, how it happened, why it happened, what it means, and all that. It doesn't mean, none of that even matters anymore. Exactly. We can just go forward and taking in intel like you put out and other people put out and whatever we're feeling, and flow into this thing. It's like we're keeping that distortion going.
We are.
And that's what I see going away. And we were talking at the beginning. It sounds like it's going to be the same in this 30-day period coming up, where you have these two ends of the spectrum, and you have these things you're looking at and experiencing that are like distorted, but you're involved with that, or you're observing yourself as being involved with that. And then on the other end of the extreme, you're seeing the light like you never have before each moment that you shift past one of those.
Yeah. So that's the ridges. Like I said, we're looking through colors that aren't true. So imagine that you have like a piece of gold glass here in front of you. You think the world's golden, but then that piece of golden glass is removed and you're able to see the light for a second before you throw up something else.
That's a good example.
The thing that you throw up is coming out of you. And I say throw up because you're literally like causing it to come out of your body and come up and block. There's nothing new being created to block things. It's just a deeper layer. And then the light shines at that until eventually you're like, you can't stand it anymore and it dissolves. And then you see the light again and you're like, oh no, and you throw up again. And you keep bringing up all these things until eventually there's nothing left to throw up. And then all that's left is that clarity. That's what these purges are doing. That light gets brighter and is dissolving that stuff faster and faster each day. But the thing is, and again, April 15th, when we transition into the energies of the new world, when that comes through, it's going to be dissolving those things like that. Now it's dissolving those things like this.
Yeah.
But then it's going to be just like so fast. You can't even imagine how fast things are going to be dissolving. So be prepared to throw up a lot really fast all at once.
Yeah. Stay on your toes.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I can push myself to work, not for a long period of time. My body feels heavy. There's been quite a bit of inflammation, but on everything else, I feel okay. It's just my body's been so affected. It's just
But have you actually taken the time to like connect to your body and say, hey, body, we're in this together. Let's talk. Because like that's why I did that whole thing on the body as a child. Right now, all this stuff that's coming up is coming up because there's a part of us that's been mistreated. And if we keep saying like, pretend that your body's a horse and you're like kicking it to make it go faster, it's eventually going to throw you off. And that's when you get knocked out and you end up sleeping for a day or getting the flu or something like that. That's your body literally saying, I'm going to kick you off of me now. And you're just going to have to deal with this and observe because we are under maintenance and there is nothing you can do about it. And the goal is not to have that happen to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that means that our body and us need to be in alignment. And this is the best time to do that inner work, to come into that alignment. If we don't do that, it gets really rough, really fast.
I think that relationship is moving fast too between the body.
It is.
The relationship and transformation is moving just as fast as the mental or the emotional or any of the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we are now moving into a fifth dimensional reality. It's amazing. Our bodies are now moving into a fifth dimensional reality. And there's all these really cool tools that are coming out to help us with that. One thing that I've just recently started discovering is something called CBD. And I've heard tons of talk around it and things like that. And I'm not a fan of the concept of CBD as it stands, but what it does and as it's unlocking, I'm finding that more and more people are starting to actually understand what it does. And they're starting to begin to work with that. There's a company I started working with that actually started doing this recently. And the zero THC aspect of it is imperative to the CBD. Like if it has more THC in it, then what happens is those receptors get bonded with that and it changes things. But if we actually unlock our human potential, those endocannabinoid receptors and other things are part of that process. That's why they're in there. There's nothing inside this body that's designed not to be utilized. The problem is we don't know how to utilize it yet. So learning from things like that, as long as you feel called to, this is important to anyone listening. I'm not saying go out and buy CBD. Do your research, figure out if it works. But for what I've learned personally, especially with the company I've been working with, it actually unlocks the fifth dimensional potential of the body because it opens up those receptors and begins to enhance and clean them. And when it does that, what happens is our bodies are then able to come to this state where everything starts aligning. It starts going like this instead of like this and being erratic and all that. It actually is like, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. I can remember this now. These receptors, this is what I've been missing. Thank you. And that's what I've learned personally recently is that if you have the right material inside your body, it remembers. Our bodies have already been through this. This is not their first rodeo. Us as spiritual beings, we've already been through this.
And how do you determine or how do you go about figuring out what your body needs?
That's the hard part because there's not one person on this planet who has the exact same body. So that's pure discernment. Like this drink that I drink is extremely good for me, but it would make most people sick. And the reason it would make most people sick is it's pure bonded water. It's dimensionally sound water. It's extremely strong. So to drink this water means that your body has to be dimensionally sound. Otherwise, you end up throwing up, you end up hallucinating, which is mental image pictures dissolving. All kinds of things come up for you to deal with. So our body has to be pure for us to go deeper. And that purity comes up in so many different ways. For purity, for some people, it's drinking a soda. Literally, that soda has the codes they need, so they need to drink it. For some people, that soda would make them sick and not actually be good for them. You see, it's impossible to say what's good for everyone. Yeah. What I can say is unlocking that endocannabinoid receptors in the body is a very important process. And there's a million different ways to do it. So you need to find your own discernment to do it. For me, I've learned that the CBD oil is very helpful for now. It's unlocking and teaching me things. But everything is important as it's important. And it's not important always. Work with what works until it doesn't, and then move on and find something else that works until eventually the only thing that works is you.
Yeah. It's still the same path to the ultimate result, which is self-sustaining within ourselves. Period.
Absolutely. Self-sourcing is the key to everything. Yeah. But it's important that we take a realist approach to this. The reality is, if we don't know how to do something and we practice and do it forever, we're eventually going to learn how to do it, right? But we have to have efficiency as well. So if I can learn something, let's just think of it from this perspective. There are cars, right? They exist. If I want to get 100 miles, is it more efficient for me to walk or drive? It's more efficient for me to drive, right? Because it's a really long distance. Now, if I want to go next door, is it more efficient for me to walk or drive? Yeah. It's probably more efficient for me to actually walk because reversing the car, driving, it's less efficient. So every tool has its value and every tool has when it's not valuable. There will be a day when we don't need cars. It'll happen. Whether we'll be alive for it or not, I don't know. But there will be a day when it's irrelevant. We'll be able to teleport. We'll be able to do other cool things. Maybe even fly. Who knows? Sky is the limit. It really depends on humans. It's our choice whether we want to let go of those things or not. But every tool has its uses. Every tool teaches us, and every tool is efficient until it isn't. What's really important, and I want everyone to hear me say this, is a tool is a tool. You are always going to be important. For eternity, you are the only thing you ever have to deal with forever. So when you compromise, when you do something that isn't in alignment with you, when you die, you take that with you. When you compromise with someone else and you help that person and hurt yourself, you have to deal with that. When you work with yourself and you work to be sustainable in yourself, that's the end goal. That's the game. Because at that point, you become an example, and everyone else then learns how to do that self-sufficiency as well. That's what we're here to do. But if that means learning to be self-sufficient means being willing to learn from others, there are things I am not a master of, and I can acknowledge that. And then I can learn from their mastery so that I can become a master of that. Because if we're going to be self-sufficient, we have to understand and know things. My endocannabinoid system hadn't been turned on or worked with in this life. So CBD made sense for me. Some people, you might just take an image of it and look at it and be like, oh, I get the codes. That's perfect. And that's sufficient for you. Some people might actually need to take it. Some people might just buy it and set it on a shelf. Every person has their own way of doing things. And it's really important that you understand that you want to follow your own. Because if you listen to my advice and you take it as gospel or as absolute truth, and you go out and you buy this and it's not good for you, then you've hurt yourself and you've empowered something that isn't you. My words are just wisdom in action. That's it. My words are not your truth. My words are my truth. So really important that you understand when anything I'm talking about, I'm explaining it from my point of view.
You're talking to yourself.
Exactly.
That's what I tell people in these spirit walks. I'm really talking to myself. But I like what you're saying too, because you're taking it's not science and it's not even spirituality. It's just put in human terms, and you're saying these are tools. So crystals are tools. Cards are tools. Whatever your belief system possibly could be a tool. Like
belief system is a tool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, all these different tools, etherically, non-etherically, it all comes back to us. We can what we could clear, let's say, over a 2-week period last year, we could clear in a 2-day period 6 months ago. We could clear in a 2-minute period 6 weeks ago. We can clear in 2 seconds now.
It's about right with the math you did there.
But you know what I mean? I mean, it's like if I use a crystal to clear something a certain way, or I have a certain modality, and I've learned this type of stuff from Morgan, and the way you're talking about it's the same thing she says, and you identify or align with that energy when you come out on the other side of the equation, it's almost like Samantha twinkling her nose or just blinking your eyes and it's done. You know, you go from this place to you position yourself, you connect to that place of alignment, and you're clear. Because all those things are stories and distorted experiences, illusions, and they're all the same thing. It's the same energy. It just isn't true.
But working with those tools is what teaches you what is true. So that's kind of important to acknowledge too, is like, if I wanted to work with a modality and I work with it, now I learned about that modality. I gained some form of understanding. And as long as I didn't empower that modality over myself, and again, it's all about the approach. If I use a tool and I acknowledge it as a tool, like Activation Station is a great example. I don't want people to become codependent or reliant on Activation Station. Activation Station assists people to find themselves at a deeper level faster. That's the whole goal. So all of the tools I've ever written are self-discovery on purpose, because there is nothing greater than discovering yourself and allowing yourself to expand. Yeah. The tools that allow you to expand yourself and don't hinder or harm that process are the greatest tools on earth. And every tool can be that. It is all even your approach.
Yeah, and even I can think of tools I use or methods I use, and I stuck with them for a long, long time, and until I no longer needed it, or I could get to that point in a quicker way. And I think that's what's happening to us. And as the individual goes, so goes the collective. We all have different perspectives, how we're doing or whatever it is. But there is some energies that are expanding on this earth that are carrying these codes and frequencies, and we can take them in. And people are doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of life is that everything is temporary, and that we have a capability to learn from everything while we're here. Literally everything. There's nothing in this world that can't teach us something if we have the openness to learn. So how we spend our time is relevant to impact. Does this thing impact me at this level, or does it impact me at this level? And could I spend my time and receive something this level right now? Because if I can't, then this level still is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding that impact. Because right now, a lot of people don't understand that impact is part of this process. Spending 5 minutes a day in meditation helps you exponentially 10 days from now.
Yeah.
Spending time in meditation 10 days from now doesn't help you right now. So that's where the whole now approach comes from, is like, we have this capability to work now to improve our future.
Yeah.
But sometimes working now on something actually is too much and it hinders our future. So for instance, if you, in your body's shape, decided that you wanted to go run a 10-mile marathon, do you think you and your body would be very happy, or do you think that it would probably kick you out of the driver's seat for a little bit? Probably kick you out, right?
After these last 3 days, there wouldn't even be an attempt.
That's my point. You would just get checked out. So when we choose things that impact us negatively, our bodies at this point say, hey, no, you're going to lay down now. Enjoy the flu, or enjoy going into a seizure, right? Because it won't let us go at that level of negativity and extreme anymore. But now if you said, hey, body, I feel like I'm going to jog like for 5 minutes, your body would be like, okay, you know what? Actually, that could be good for us, right? It's about understanding that impact can be positive and negative in the greater game. And it's learning what is good for you and what isn't good for you. And again, this is not universal. This is personal. What is good for you and what isn't good for you. So for instance, that same example, a person who runs marathons daily, if I said, hey, does your body want you to run a marathon? They'd probably be like, yeah, my body's like down for a marathon. Let's do this. And there's nothing wrong with that. I personally couldn't run a marathon right now. I think I would collapse within 2 miles. It would not be a fun experience. My body would definitely be very upset with me. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's not in alignment with me. And this is very important, because personal alignment is key right now. We are in the spiritual purge, which means we are examining what good and evil are. So that means our perception of good and evil in the world and the times that we've thrown it on others is what we're examining. Because no one outside of us is either good or evil. We can be good or evil to others based on ourselves and our own understanding and our own ethics and morals. We can be good or evil to ourselves. But inherently, there is no good and evil out here. So if I call you evil, or I call you dark, or I call you good, or whatever, I'm giving you value that isn't true. Because you are perfect. You are whole. You are complete as you are until you tell me otherwise. But you're not good and you're not evil. You can be good to me. I can feel goodness from you, right? But in order for us to make it through the spiritual purge, the external good and evil has to go away. And we have to begin to understand this is a personal definition, that no one is inherently good or evil other than us. And that's what the spiritual purge is. It's saying, okay, this is good for me. This isn't good for me. That doesn't mean that this is good for everyone.
To include right and wrong.
Exactly.
Just another two names for good and evil.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is a personal right and wrong. So for instance, me murdering someone doesn't feel right for me. It feels horrible, actually. My body actually cringes a little bit. The idea of it doesn't feel good, doesn't feel aligned. Those are okay. I'm allowed to feel that way. Me saying that you shouldn't murder people, that's me taking my beliefs and putting them on you and judging you for something, right? Yeah. And that's where it gets dangerous, because the spiritual purge is going to push up on all those things that you believe someone else shouldn't do. Now, again, this is very important to anyone listening. If someone is doing something to you, you can either acknowledge that as good or bad for you. But you can't say that person is good or bad. You can say that you feel they're good or bad. That's cool too, because you're acknowledging something. But to shame or blame them is only going to perpetuate your problem.
Yeah.
If someone is
going to bother them, it's not going to bother them as much as it's going to bother you.
Exactly.
Yeah. 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 That's a straight up scoop from the front line of the apocalypse right there. But that's what's happening, and it's in really one way or the other, kicking and screaming or not, everything is being taken back to us. Us. And like you said, in all facets, it's that self-sustaining, infinite soul power. I mean, it's whether it's the physical eventually with the fact that we don't have to eat or take water in or whatever the case is, but it's also happening first and foremost at an energetic level. That's why we're seeing these things come before us, and it's moving fast.
It is definitely moving fast. I agree 100%. But that's the key for this stage. And we're actually going to do another video, I think, right before the next one. Let me see here.
16th.
Yeah, so I won't cover the mental plane today. Just know that the spiritual plane is all about good and evil and your understanding of it on others. Now, this is important for anyone that's experiencing bad things happening to them. So if someone is doing harm to you, that doesn't mean that you stay in harm's way.
Yeah.
If you feel bad about something that's happening to you, step away from that which is happening to you and observe it and learn from it and forgive it and heal through it. That person is not evil. That person is not good. That person is simply assisting you to see something. But that means the moment that you can acknowledge and say, oh, I see this, that doesn't mean you stay in that person's line of sight. You don't continue to allow that person to do harm to you. You allow yourself enough love and acceptance to step out of that situation, to heal that situation. And then if you give that person another chance and they don't change, then you've out-leveled that game. It means you're done with that. You don't need to be in that relationship or connection anymore. And that's okay too. But that's not them being evil. When you call someone evil or you call them bad or dark or whatever, all you're doing is guaranteeing that you get to experience it again.
True. Because it doesn't exist out there. It only exists when it comes from you.
Exactly.
And it's not going to go away. You can't destroy energy. So, I mean, you can't destroy energy, so you put it out there, it's going to come back.
Always does. Yeah. And now it will come back faster than you can imagine.
Hey, you know what? That's true. That's happening.
Yep.
Morgan said that to me about 2 weeks ago when this energy was starting to kick in. She's like, man, have you noticed how fast instant manifestation is? And I was thinking always in terms of, oh, I want a car, let me instant manifest that. Or, in that regard, I never really gave it much thought. But she was right. It was the thoughts, like cursing this or damning that, or judging. That shift was coming right back right away. And that has been happening.
That is how it goes. So your thoughts, the negative ones, are the first ones to manifest. And I say your thoughts. This is important because thoughts aren't always yours. When you say, I wish this person was dead, in your mind, you've just put death on that person. But if you're feeling like, oh, this person should die, and that's not you saying this person should die. That's just floating around, right? Because our heads, if you think of it, like there's this giant cloud around it called the collective, and their thought forms, their beliefs, their structures are coming into us. And as we process and clear those thoughts, then they don't go out of us again. But if we use those thoughts and we put our power to them, we make them force in the world, they have to make manifest. But if we want to clear up the world, we have to clear up our own thoughts. And that's our own thoughts, not the collective thoughts. So when a thought comes into you, you have the capability to clear it, to work through it, right? Or to form it. Those are your only two options. So you can dissolve it, dismiss it, remove it, whatever you feel called to say.
Form it, transform it.
Exactly.
You're transforming it.
Yeah, most people are. But that's okay too, because then it pushes on them physically, and then they have to work through it. Yeah. The very beginning of every month, from the 1st to the 5th, the entire month's template, everything that has to happen for you to achieve what you need to achieve is handed to you to solve. Everything that's solved doesn't become made manifest. It actually creates a clear plate for you. So you have this room now that you don't have to do anything in, which means you can actually create what you want. But if you can't solve what's handed to you, then immediately it begins to start its manifestation cycles. So all of those things you couldn't solve become experiences that are now facing you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on how you handle it. If you're reactive, you're guaranteed going to get another shot. If you're responsive, you're most likely not going to have to deal with that again. But if you're reactive, it means that you subconsciously cannot handle the experience or take responsibility for it, because responsive is literally responsibility. Then it's going to come and be deflected, and then it's going to grow momentum, and then it's going to come back around and face you again. That's how it goes. Well, we have the capability to take that energetic template and accept and love it and work through it, and then have the freedom of the month to create our dreams.
That's what I meant too, by transforming. Take it in and create what you want with it. You know,
Exactly.
on the other end of this, you know, take. It's not even like taking a negative thought forward. It's more like taking whatever is presented and converting it to the same trajectory. You know.
Well, so the concept of negative thought is that judgment that creates it. Mm-hmm. Thoughts are just thoughts. That's it. Murdering thoughts are murdering thoughts. Death thoughts are death thoughts. Wishing someone was dead, thoughts. Wishing that you had a car, thoughts. The moment that you make it into anything else, it's no longer neutral, and therefore has to be made manifest.
Yeah.
So everything is until we make it something else. And then everything is blank. And that blank, we just need to go ahead and just erase that on the chalkboard of our minds, and everything is.
Yeah.
Because that blank is what gets us in trouble. That's when we're like, everything is awesome, everything is horrible, everything, and then problems, big problems. When you use an everything is statement, you've just taken everything in the world and you've just stuck a label on it.
Yeah, those extreme absolute adjectives, or whatever you call them, those aren't very helpful.
No.
All the time, never. I mean, that's kind of like what you were talking about before, because you're not just talking about what we're saying to ourselves. You're also talking about the power of what we say to other people. And you wrote a great post. You wrote a great post about 10 days ago, very brave post, and put it out there. And you know, I mean, we have to respect our power in more ways than we might think. And one of those ways is what kind of energy we lay on somebody who's going through the same bullshit as you are, who's signed up for this journey and is on the same evolution you are. And we do have the power to affect people.
Absolutely. We have the power to create a magnitude of power against someone or for them. And anytime that we begin that process, even if we're just like this little tiny pebble, if somebody else stacks to it, then we're responsible for all the stacks that happen after. And so anytime that we label someone anything and that label gets carried and more power goes to it, that's on us.
Yep. That's right.
It's like my mom always told me, she said, you know, never say anything or don't say anything if you can't say anything nice. And I really, really wish my 4-year-old self had taken that lesson to heart and perpetuated it throughout all of my life, because I can guarantee you my life would look very different. It would be a very different world. But you're never too old to learn how to apply that lesson. But when we talk negative about anyone or anything, we really are just hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
In the greater game, we are just hurting ourselves. And I'm learning that lesson more every day, just how important it is to be wary of your words and to be like, oh, I can actually just, I don't agree with that person. That's okay. I don't even need to mention that. I can just walk away and be okay with that.
Well,
and if they ask me, then I can talk to them, right?
If you think about it, with the light body conversion being made, and we're in this transition, so we're a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's what this whole period is you know, you're taking the voice, which is, you know, the voice, sound, the motion of it, the breath of it, and you're taking with the invisible, with the non-physical energetic part of us, and you're putting intention behind it, whatever that may be, from the heart or from the head. And I guess what I really loved about that post was to respect, you know, it's not so much about respecting other people, because if you could just solve the respect for your own power, that's going to take care of how you treat other people.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. if you are hyper aware of everything you say about other people, that's not going to be as beneficial as if you're hyper aware about everything you say about yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you can hear what you think about yourself and you can begin the process of working on that, which again requires all 4 planes to be aligned so that you can move forward in your mental games. Because our mental games are the final games before we go into the understanding of God and who we actually are and all those other fun things that we can play with. But it's the mental blocks that keep us from acknowledging any great value of who we could be. And when you align all those, you're able to go through that.
Yeah. I tell you what I think a lot of my time, and I'm just passing this on as my own experience this past month, would be there wasn't a lot of chatter.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of chatter. There could have been, but I think what happened was
you got cut off there.
Yeah, I know. I just saw that.
You got happy, and the energy got really big, and what you were going to share.
Yeah, right.
Life changes.
Well, my higher self basically is the way I would explain it. It's me. I mean, my higher self, in control, said, "Look, man, this is pretty crazy. This shift going on right now. All this energy flying around, everything happening, your body, everything, and just keep working." And I spend most of my time in this mode of just kind of watching everything, like literally sitting in silence with my eyes wide open, not meditating, just watching everything, primarily without judgment. And it was a weird vibration, and it was most of the month if I look back in retrospect.
Yeah, that's like to have no thoughts and to feel like that floatiness. That's like what I call cloud-like. That's that 5th dimensional aspect. Hopefully he can come back. I don't know what happens when this happens. But yeah, cloud-like is one of the greatest things that we can do. When we can come into cloud-like, we're able to be within our body in an intense way, but at the same time, we're vibrating so fast that our body feels like air can blow through it, that our mind is still, there are no thoughts, there's nothing there. It's simply just what is in front of you, and you face that. And that's the beauty of cloud-like for anyone watching.
Okay, that's 12 shows in a row now. You see what
All
happens?
good. Yeah, no, well, you were talking about a really important thing, so it makes sense.
This has happened 12 shows in a row. I kid you not.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that was a new vibration for me. It was like I was literally like sitting in a room, a dimensional room with no walls, no ceiling, like if I had to describe it from my mind, and all these things. And a lot of it I was observing myself. I really wasn't observing other people. I was observing myself, taking in that energy that you've been talking about, how it comes at you, what you can do with it. And I really wasn't thinking. I was just watching. And I feel like over the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, whatever the vibration's been, one thing that I'm starting to get comfortable with is along the lines of what you talk about, like activation station, what Morgan's talked about. And that's like instant. I don't need to know what code I'm getting. I don't need to know every detail. I just know I'm getting it. And then I can go forth with that. And many times I've had that thought, the tones will start going off in my ears saying, you got it, you know?
That's you unlocking a new level of clarity. I love when that happens. So what you just said, and I really feel like this is important to say, is like, you don't need to analyze what is, you just need to accept it.
Yeah.
And that's the key to everything. So analyzers are a 4th dimensional principle. That's what leads you to being stuck in the 4th dimension, is you need to know why something is instead of just feel it and know what it is. Yeah. Feel and know versus stop and analyze. Stopping and analyzing is like rejecting the code. If the code isn't good, it's not going to attach to you because you don't need it, right? Like, I can't throw a ball of negativity at you. No. And it like stick to you, unless there's parts of you that need it to stick to. And then it's going to like stick like right here, and you'll be like, oh, what is this? And you get to look at it, and then you clear it. And then the next time a ball of negativity goes, it just goes right through your head because you don't have anything left to attach to. There's a lot of belief. And this, again, back when we were in the fourth dimension as a planet, protection spells, shields, all that stuff was really helpful. Like it was, because people could actually throw things and cause harm, and there was all that stuff. There was a whole spiritual war. But where we are these days, nothing can attach to you unless you actually have something to work on. So when someone like spiritually attacks you or whatever in your mind, they're actually highlighting something in you that's triggered to resolve so that the energy can flow through you properly. Yeah. Everyone is literally a lesson waiting to be understood. Yeah. And understanding and analyzing are not the same thing. When you analyze something, you pick it apart. You don't actually understand it. When you understand something, it just flows through you. It's something you don't even attach to.
You don't deny it or resist it. You just acknowledge it.
It is. And that's
really acknowledging it, because really when you think about it, whatever thoughts those are, yours or not, that's the same energetic metaphor. I mean, you still choose what to do with it.
Exactly.
The magic is in what you think it is, what you can do with it, who you are, why you received it, and all that stuff. It's not a conversation anymore. It's just like a blink. It's like just a snap, and it comes and you accept it and you move on.
And the last thing that really feels important to share is force versus influence, which I talked about before. But force is influence that's been empowered. So something is forcing you to do something, it's because you gave it the power to do it. Influences are everywhere. Everyone and everything, like to the ascended being, the highest game possible, is everyone and everything is an influence, which means it's a choice, and that's it. And then you take full responsibility. So if that influence sounds fun for you to play, you go and you play it, and whatever outcome comes from it, it's totally fine. That's influence. Force is, this thing caused me to go do this thing, and I feel bad about it. Well, that's okay too. But if something caused you to do something, then you gave power to something to take you on a ride. And now your first step is just forgiving yourself for giving your power away. Your second step is acknowledging that you gave your power away. And your third step is claiming your power back from that thing. And then fourth step and final step is just forgiving that thing.
Yeah, without any resentment, turn the story off and just move on.
Love, acceptance, and no judgment.
Right on.
Keys to everything.
So we're going to hit it again on 4/16, April 16th, right?
Yep, 4/16. Well, wait, no. 4/16 at 5:30. Yep.
That'll be interesting. See what happens. So last thing.
A whole different world then.
The spiritual one we're coming out. Do we have a halftime between the spiritual one stopping and April 15th? No halftime.
No. There's no halftimes until the game's over. The only halftime we had
until the game's over. Can we run to the loo and take a wee? Can I go get a Coke from the concession stand?
You can, but everything's gonna follow you in there. So I mean, like, we are now in a place where there is no end until the end game. Which, on the 18th of May, we do finish the purge, and then things that are pushing on us and things, we have 10 years to solve all that. So again, this purge is showing you what you have to work on in the next 10 years. Just for everyone that feels overwhelmed right now, this is 10 years worth of stuff that you're trying to resolve in the course of a few months. So don't feel like you're worthless or that you're depressed or lose hope in yourself, because you're being faced with extraordinary challenges that are designed to show you what you're capable of in the future.
Yeah, that's right. And everybody's just proportionate to their life experience. So we're all experiencing the same levels of whatever, no matter what it looks like.
Exactly.
All right, brother, I appreciate it.
There's nothing bad about that. Just for the record, nothing bad about that. What you're going through is what you need to go through to evolve into something greater. And there is nothing wrong with it. There's no need to be upset about it. And there's no need to judge yourself for falling short. Because again, it's 10 years worth of stuff to work on in a course of a few months, right? So we have a capability to work through this, but we don't know the version of us that has that capability for a lot of these things. And this is designed to show us that version of us so that we can eventually move into that version. So we're not like doing this to overwhelm ourselves on purpose. We're doing this to learn what we're capable of. And that's why we're in this purge. We agreed as a world that this was what was necessary for us to get to where we wanted to go. And we're getting there. I've never been more proud of the people I know in my life. I've been watching them be faced with really hard decisions and overcome it. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing. This is like the spiritual Olympics right now.
Right.
The test
a lot of fairy tales.
Yeah.
A lot of fairy tales coming true. Actually, every one of them is a fairy tale coming true.
Yep.
Every single
no matter
one.
what it is, big or small, it's part of a giant fairy tale.
Yeah.
Come to life.
All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. I enjoyed the hour. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for the work you're doing and the posts you're putting out.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a blessed and beautiful one.
You too, brother.
Bye.
I'll see you. Y'all take care.